I want to invite the next panel, which is Indigenous laws relating to burial practices. Can I ask Sarah Mainville, Michelle Leclerc, and Pakuk up to the stage, please? I know this is going to be a challenge, but I'm going to ask each of the speakers if you could keep your remarks to within 15 minutes. I'll give you a little nudge if we get too far, if we far too much astray from that, and that'll get us underway. I have just one note to make for all of us. We've created a table at the front of the room for smudging, and it's here on the right-hand side at the front of the room. And smudging is always available in the elders' room at Salon B. If I can ask Sarah to join us.
Miigwech, Kathleen, it's an honor to be here with so many knowledge keepers, survivors in the room. Miigwech. Bonjour, Kabamishi Pinisikwe Indigenous, Makwa Dodam Kuchching Nindoji. I'm a proud citizen of the Anishinaabe Nation in Treaty 3. I have a presentation deck, I think, somewhere, that I wanted to share not just about Anakanagewin, Anishinaabe, Anakanagewin, and the gifts the Creator has given us in our way, but also I wanted to share a bit about traditional decision-making, because I know there's a lot of hard decision-making happening between parties in the room and elsewhere in our communities, and so I just wanted to share a bit of that. I'm going to talk a bit about our constitutionalism in Anishinaabe society, and I turn a lot to an elder in our Treaty 3 community, Elder Fred Kelly, and he very eloquently talks about these four sacred messengers, the eagle, the thunderbird, the crane, and the hummingbird, and I love that hummingbird story. But as we're working with law in Nakanagewin, and myself as a lawyer that's been out, I've learned about Canadian law, and I've learned it in order to work for the Grand Council Treaty 3. I know that the role of written law, of writing it down, is to provide a guide to live within our teachings. That's my understanding and my grounding of Anishinaabe and Nakanagewin. So as we create child welfare laws and health laws, it's the work I'm doing right now for my nation, we're understanding the role that law plays in our societies and staying away, leaving all that mainstream understanding of law at the door, because law can be oppressive. And I've heard that a lot yesterday and today. Anakanagewin is about a heart-centered approach. And as elders have told me in child rearing, that we need to make sure that we are teaching our children about unconditional love. You know, not penalizing children in the way that they're learning, and taking an approach, a holistic approach to learning itself. Law is meant to be a guide, and it's meant to be a helper, and that's really how I frame law in the work that I do with my nation and with the communities I work for. So this idea of Minagozawin, I mean, I've often asked elders, and Anishinaabe one is a non-Anishinaabe fluent speaker, what does that mean? And I normally get the literal translation. It means what the Creator gave us. But I'm learning more to ask elders, but tell me more. Tell me more what that is all about, and learning more about what I call the spiritual translation of these key words. And Minagozawin is one of those key words in our lives. So when we work in law for our nation, we're talking about our own independent agency. When a child comes from the spirit world into this physical existence, they have 100% agency. They make the decision to come to those parents when those parents are ready for them. But we also learn as we grow older, we go from the physical to the emotional maturity. We learn that interdependency is such a good thing. To have a strong human family, to have a strong community. I've never learned so much community love since when my mom passed away. When my mom passed away, my family was heartbroken. And the community showed us their unconditional love. And that's some of the teachings that we have to bring to bear in these hard discussions that we're having. I talk a lot about traditional lawmaking and traditional decision making. Some of it is the same type of process. The idea of Inuit is all the things that the Creator has given us is our teachings. And as I write down law, I'm working with an and I've been told about that like the teachings of a pipe in a pipe ceremony. When the pipe is facing outward, we're letting people know this is the guide to live in our law. When the pipe is inward, that's an Onakanagewan, that's that solidarity, the belief system that we're going to live within our law. We're going to stand behind that law. We're going to be in solidarity with that law. So I have an example that I think might be helpful when you think about when the child is born and brought home, and there's that welcoming ceremony that the child is given. Because we have an understanding that as a spirit, the child had a perfect existence, but that spirit decided to visit us, decided to come into our lives. The child decides when the parents are ready. And then we help them with that transition into the physical world with things like the Tikanagan teachings and that physical strength so that they have healthy bones and they stretch and then they strengthen themselves to learn how to live in this world. And that welcoming ceremony is so key because that connects them to Mother Earth. And Mother Earth is so important to that Anishinaabe child, that Abenuji, because that mother has everything for them, everything they need. So there are other teachings and concepts that we frame in to a law regarding burials and returning and helping spirits take that 4-day journey. So there's a spiritual path. It's a somewhat physical spiritual path for that being. And there's 7 important things that have to go into that person's bundle as they start down that journey. And we have to remember not to give them too much, because that spirit has to take that journey successfully in order to know, in order to go where they are meant to be, which is that spirit world. And holding that spirit back is something as human beings we want to do, right? I know when my mother passed away, it took me a really long time to get over it, get over myself. But I know something that I've learned from friends in Treaty 3 is about the fact that we know that children, young children, are so special and so connected to spirit that we have to mark them. We have to put markings on them. So when somebody is making that 4-day journey, we have to let them know that these children are meant to stay and that they shouldn't also be taking on that journey. So I want to talk just a little bit and share this with you. I'm not sure if the deck is shareable to the participants, but I hope it is. This is a traditional decision-making process around the health law that we're taking. It's from visioning to scouting, making sure that, I guess just symbolically, that we have everything to make a lodge, which is a law. All the things we're involving all the right people to make a decision. And then a hunter-gatherer warrior phase is just to make sure that you have all the plans in place, the blueprint to make a law, and then have a celebration after the law is made and everybody is of one mind and can stand behind it. That's a similar process, a traditional decision-making process that we have to think about as we're making these having these hard discussions around what to do. And being all of one mind is an important decision-making process. But we want to make sure that everyone is included because everyone has a gift, and those gifts are needed may be necessary to to make these hard decisions, and it's important. And to understand and to share what our teachings are and our customary ways. Because sometimes, even in our nation in Treaty 3, we really recognize that each community has its own customs, its own customary ways, its own protocols, and we honor those things. This idea of constant personal interaction, I've often heard it takes a long time for us to do things, because one of the first things elders tell us is to be careful. And so that constant personal interaction, those constant discussions are really important. Doing things in the right way are really important. And in Treaty 3, we have St. Mary's, who had a recent announcement about unmarked burials, St. Margaret's, the school that my mom and my dad went to, Cecilia Jeffrey, St. Margaret's, and Macintosh. And we have to, I guess my final thoughts on this is to think about what we actually do around burials, and the fact that in Treaty 3 we have some old reserves that actually do have grave sites on them. They don't have graveyards on them. Our tradition isn't to have a place where we go and visit people that have already taken their 4-day journey, but we do have places where these physical bodies are buried, and we honor them and we respect them. We don't mean to disturb them. And there are protocols that we have to understand in community and honor them. And that's and the last thing, the last thought too, is that I know that all of these schools in Treaty 3 didn't just receive Anishinaabe Abenuje, they didn't just receive Anishinaabe children. There's other legal traditions involved, and I think that's great that we're all getting together and talking about our legal traditions, seeing the commonalities, but also the diversity, and we should honor both. Miigwech.
Thank you, Sarah. Nyawe, Sarah. If I can ask Michelle Leclerc to please share your view.
Thank you. Before I do, we have a survivor that we brought with us, and she wants to come up and sit with me, if that's okay. Margaret Obashan is a survivor of the Isle Across School. She's from the Dene Nation, and she's going to come and sit with us up here. She's making her way. Kane's going faster than she is. So while Margaret makes her way up here, I'll maybe start. So, Tanshi Kia, Lanate, Bonjour, good afternoon. I think it's only right to acknowledge the land that we're standing on today and that we're meeting on today. The traditional territories of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the I'm going to do this bad, Anashaweg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat people, and that we're on Treaty 13 territory. So I was reading the panel that I was on, Indigenous laws relating to burials. In Saskatchewan, so I come from the Métis Nation, and for many years during the TRC process, the Day Scholar process, all of that, Métis people were left out. We have a tremendous amount of schools, and we see there's unmarked graves found at Cowessess and different communities. But Métis people and their experience, our community went to those residential schools as well. Our First Nations and Métis communities are very close together, and we're family in Saskatchewan. And part of our family isn't being recognized. Many of those graves that have been found in Saskatchewan belong to our people. And there's a tendency not to recognize that. So I'm not really going to talk about the traditional laws of the burials. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the opportunity to talk to you about Saskatchewan and about what happens. I mean, when we're looking at the unmarked graves, and as I said, some of those children were our children. There's a lack of acknowledgement and a lack of recognition, and it's all around colonial policy. So our kids are being forgotten. They're being found, but they're not being acknowledged, which is probably the most shameful part of this. Our children are still missing. We have one of the, and Louis talked about it a bit this morning, we have one of the oldest residential schools in Canada. Isle La Crosse was founded 247 years ago. Within that time frame, the day school started in 1840. But that wasn't good enough because you couldn't keep the kids at school. Their families were still from old school ways, from traditional ways, and they said, no, you're not taking our kids. But then the RCMP and the priests and the nuns started showing up and taking those children from their homes and putting them in the boarding school by 1860. That school didn't close down until 1974. That's 7 generations of harm and trauma in Northwest Saskatchewan. We are at a point where we're talking to our elders and to our survivors about doing ground penetrating work in Isle La Crosse. As with many other schools, they were burnt down a number of times and rebuilt. Isle La Crosse was burnt down 3 times? 3 times and rebuilt in different places. There are places in Isle La Crosse, in the community of Isle La Crosse, where the schools were near. Behind the school, nothing's ever been built there. Because I think that there's people in the community that know that there's graves there. And so it's time to do that. We are not a recognized Indian residential school. We're a Métis, they used the term boarding school, as though it was something that someone had gone to voluntarily. That didn't happen. Kids were picked up by the priests and the RCMP and took those kids to school. There was a school, Beauval, our friend Jackie Bouvier is here. She went to that school. They were about 100 kilometers apart. It was recognized as an Indian residential school, but Isle La Crosse wasn't, even though it was an older school. They shared staff. They shared the same priests, the same nuns, the same staff would go back and forth. We're going to go up to, the kids are acting up in Isle La Crosse, we're going to send our tough ones up there, or vice versa. The government of Saskatchewan and the government of Canada has not recognized the harm that has been done in that community. And I'm taking this opportunity to put it out there, because I know that we would have 100% support in this room to support the Isle La Crosse survivors. The number of Isle La Crosse survivors was about 1,500, in modern day, obviously, many more than that. And we've got 600 survivors left. In the last year, we've lost over 30 people that will never be acknowledged, that their experience and their stories will never be told. They're lost. They're lost with all of those little children that are lost. When we talk about truth, their stories are beginning to be heard. We're doing that as an organization, as a government, Métis Nation Saskatchewan. But when we talk about reconciliation, both in Saskatchewan and across this nation, reconciliation cannot happen until every single school has been acknowledged, and that every student is acknowledged for the harm that they've experienced, those families that have an experience. When we talk about intergenerational harm, we're not just talking about people, we're talking about communities, whole communities that have lost culture, language, all of that. And Tom Potter, this is the first time at Porter I've ever heard you speak, and you had my heart. And some of the things that you were talking about is giving, that our youth have to be strong, and they have to take all of that stuff forward. The unfortunate part about all of that is my father, for example, speaks 4 Indigenous languages. I speak none. Because the school, the teachings, the beatings are still there. And he didn't want to hurt us kids. So now my kids are trying to learn the language and do all of that. There's a tremendous amount of pressure being put on our young people, and I know that they will pick that up and they will take it and they'll run with it, and you see it happening in our communities. But there's more of all of the negative stuff happening in our community. Suicides. I think in Isle Across, the last probably 6 months, there's been 5 or 6 suicides. There's overdose. There's this horrible, horrible drug, crystal meth, in those communities. These are all as a result of intergenerational trauma. And so I love what you say. We really need to put our backs, our minds, our spirits behind these young people. Pardon me. To try and pick them up. They're like birds that have fallen off the tree too early and don't know how to fly. And so I take this opportunity to call out to the federal government of Canada to acknowledge, recognize, compensate survivors of the Isle Across School. I take this opportunity to call out the Saskatchewan government to acknowledge, to compensate our Isle Across School survivors. And I call out to all of you for support in doing that. And finding our babies, making sure we know where they are, whether they were at an Indian residential school or if they're up north in Isle Across. My fan. Margaret Opishon. And I just really quickly, I just want to mention Jalin Asinaway, the young lady who spoke earlier. And she talked about getting more youth involved. And that's how we're going to get there. Youth and elders working together to form some sort of maybe plan, youth conference, to get together and just talk as youth, because these are the intergenerational survivors that are living the trauma that many of you lived. Maybe not in the same way, but it's trickled down. And we need to help them. What we're going to find from them is solutions. And those solutions need to be found with the youth and with the elders working together to ensure that we have healthier communities, healthier families, and that we can move forward, not forget, but move forward. The other thing is, I heard a an elder here earlier, I think in the back, who was talking about the church's responsibility. We had the Pope visit Canada this summer, and some of you went to Rome, and the Pope apologized. Kind of. Some people took it as an apology. I was kind of, did he really apologize? But even if he did apologize, what generally comes with apologies? When Stephen Harper apologized to our survivors of residential school, what came with that? A legacy fund, the Healing Foundation. There was, at least some opportunity to try and fix the mess that they left behind. And the church, now with its apology, needs to roll out their wallets. They need to start looking at, we need to come up with legacy plans in our communities where the schools were. And we need to present that and say, look, you made the mess, we'll fix it, because we know how. You give us the money. And I think we need to hold, for us, the Catholic Church's feet to the fire. And it needs to happen, and it needs to happen soon, before we lose our survivors, before we lose our children, before we lose our communities, our language, all of that. So I'm sorry if I was disappointing, because I didn't really talk about Indigenous laws relating to burials, but this is important for us. And we're, just to close, we're going to the United Nations in April, and we've got a side event where we're only going to talk about Isle of Cross with the world, because we can't get any attention in Canada or in Saskatchewan, so we're going to go to the United Nations. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me.
Thank you, Michelle. I just want to remind everyone and the survivors that are in the room from La Crosse and elsewhere that the National Centre is gathering statements and can offer truth in that venue as well. As we share and hear the powerful words of our guest speakers, I just want to kindly remind everyone, if you could put your cell phone on silent mode, we can focus our attention on the speaker. If I can ask Pakuk to come up.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Pakuk Pico. I'm from Inuit Nunavut. I'm a member of the Nunavut Land Claims Agreement. I'm going to be speaking a little bit about traditional burials in the Inuit way, and how we're doing things now, and how we're trying to mix in a little bit of both with how we bury our people these days. It's a little bit of a tough subject for myself. My best friend recently passed away to suicide, and we'll be burying him traditionally. So if a hunter or if a man passed away traditionally, they would be buried with their personal effects, their hunting equipment. So yeah, they would be buried with their hunting equipment so they can use it in the next life. We believe in that there's two planes afterlife, above and below. It's, below us, it's known to be a bountiful land, full of game. And for women, when the women were buried, they would be buried with their personal effects as well, sewing needles, thimbles. If a baby was being buried, they would be buried with bone games. When a man or a woman or a child was buried, they would be wrapped in sealskin to keep their spirit with the body until they're ready to move on. we grew up really hard, just like almost anyone else in this room, facing intergenerational trauma. And some of us don't get a chance to get through all of it. I grew up lost as well, trying to find my way, but it was traditional knowledge and culture and practicing my way of life that helped me get to this point. So I just want to take a second just to, for all my friends and family, just a little bit of silence. When we were planning my friend's burial, we right now in Inuit, we don't have the best cemetery. They didn't listen to our knowledge, and they put the cemetery in a bog. So all of our people right now are being buried in muck and swampy areas. So recently, me, my friends, and some other young folks, we've been trying to get a committee together where we can bury our people traditionally. When an Inuk is being buried because of our permafrost, Inuit were buried in stone cairns. They're about 17 to 25 inches tall, about here. And so we're hoping that we can open up a traditional cemetery in Inuit so that our people aren't being buried in muck and swamps, and that we can be buried traditionally and with our personal effects. I'm sorry, I thought it was going to be easier speaking about it when I came up.
Okay. Speak from your heart. It's okay.
We're all here with you. My grandfather was buried traditionally in Clyde River. He was originally from Inuit, where I was born, but he was relocated to Clyde River. And a lot of Inuit were relocated for sovereignty reasons by the Canadian government, because they wanted to have the Northwest Passage and the High Arctic claimed as Canada. And my grandfather was one of them. He was relocated, but he loved the land in Clyde River, and it's a beautiful place. But when I visited his grave for the first time since I was a child, it's more peaceful visiting. I found it was more peaceful visiting a traditional grave than the graveyard where I'm from. So I tried my hardest to get things in motion so that we can do things traditionally. And I had also wanted to make a motion with the committee we were putting together to build a stone cairn outside of the Turketill Hall, outside of Churchill, places that Inuit were sent. I grew up with my father being a politician and my mother a teacher, but that's just on the outside. The exterior, my mom has 13 siblings, and each of them are survivors. So are my grandparents. So growing up and just seeing the hardships they go through, and now that I'm a young adult, I see that my family, my friends are still struggling 7 generations later. So I'm hoping, the work we can do here is something that put an end. I have a young son now, he's 9 months old, and whenever I look at him, I really hope that he doesn't have to feel the kind of hardships or the pain that we grow up feeling because of things the government and the churches did to us. So, yeah, I don't know if I can continue. I'm sorry. I tried my best.
It's okay. You did good. Your parents are my neighbors, and I lived in the house.
Yeah,
There's Kleenex there for you.
I'm fine.
Okay.
You did good. Peter's going to offer us a song.
Bonjour. I thought about singing this song last night when the politicians were here. This song also comes from my friend, the Pasoniquit, Peter Atkinson. And he was asked to do a funeral for this little baby that was only here for a very short time. And on the way to do this funeral, he was thinking about what would have been this baby's name. And as he drove along, it came to him that the baby's name would have been the one who wanted to go home. And as he was driving along, this song came to him. And he shared this song with us. And he told us that you might find a place for this song where it might be useful. And I usually use this song at the end of a sweat lodge ceremony when those spirits are done working with us and they want to go back. And this song, it says, I want to go home. I want to go home. Inonde kiwen, inonde kiwen, inonde kiwen, inonde kiwen, inonde kiwen, inonde kiwen. Yeshe maneto. inonde giwen. Wa, 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 wa. Nikanigana. I thought about singing that song last night. Because I wondered what song those children who never came home would sing to those politicians. And that's the song that came to my mind. And I have a really hard time learning songs, but sometimes a song will come and you'll hear it and you remember it. And that's one of those ones that I remembered right away. And it's really good that we should try to bring back our belief system, our ways of being, and most importantly, to reconnect to the rest of creation. To get away from this idea that was put upon us that we should be above the rest of creation. Because we are only part of the rest of creation. We are a part, we're not separate. We should never have been separated from that. And I think it's really important to do that. Those of you who are fortunate to live in communities where you can get onto the land, you probably already know how peaceful it is there. You probably know that when you go there, you'll get healed by your relatives. At every opportunity I have, I go sit in a bush, a little bit of bush we have left. And I think that's really, really important for you to do if you're having a hard time. Go sit by a tree. Go listen to the birds. Pretty soon, the frogs will start singing. Pretty soon, Manadonsak, those little insects will start singing. Those little spirits will wake you up. Some of them might even bite you. And in the fall time, you can listen to the crickets. They'll sing you to sleep. This is how we should live, connected to the rest of creation. Miigwech Bisendawig, and as you all know, my wife says I talk too much.
Now I go up, Peter. I want to ask Margaret, who is the survivor from Illacross. She has some words that she wants to share. Margaret is going to begin our dialogue, and Pita has words to share to lift us in Pakuk. So let me first ask Margaret to come to the microphone.
Planet Air, how are you? Bonjour. That's about the only French word that I know. But the first word was my language. I was born a Dana, and I live a Dana. I'm proud of my tradition. I'll never lose my tradition. As every speaker that spoke out here, that stood up here, and a young girl and a young gentleman, what are they saying to us? Here we stand and say, let's keep our tradition, let's work and let's make it strong. These people, the young people, are our leaders. Help them, they're crying out to us. We cannot ignore anybody. We're all equal as one sitting in here. We're all natives. Be proud of who you are. Put your head up high. As we struggle, as a little girl going into a residential school at the age of 6. I had no clue of one word in English. And it was tough and hard. As the nuns tell you what to do, I did not understand. And I would get punished for that, which I didn't get from home. But I became strong. I became a woman with strength. Even though the tragedy that we went through, we struggled. Our meals were, you couldn't even feed that to your dog. When you say abuse, that's the first thing that hits my mind is how I was abused at the residential. Not only me, everybody that stood there, that was in there. I could not talk my language. I struggled to learn my alphabetical order. From there on, I learned. When I went home each summer, the greatest teachers of my life in history are my grandparents. They taught me how to survive. They taught me how to do things. We live off land. But the young man that stood here and spoke from the heart, we're here to support him. No matter, even though he's not from our community, but like I said, we're all crying to each other, say, let's keep our tradition and help. Unity. We must unite together and help each other. We were abused when we were young. We are still abused by the government. Help us, as what Michelle said. Help us fight the government. Not you guys. We're not going to be fighting against each other, but you help us fight. We need your support. Isla Cross Residential was left out. As Michelle mentioned, Steve Harper, yes, I've heard in his own words, Isla Cross School will be included. Where is it? A body that's supposed to be with us, a body that's supposed to help us. We voted him in, but now, where did it go? So as we begin our journey, no matter how old we are, don't ever think you're old. You're still young at heart. Today, a while ago, my phone was ringing. I could just recognize it. I've been getting phone calls all morning. We just lost an elder in our community. Each death, the community takes it hard. But he died of natural cause. So pray for the family that they're strong. And I was close to that man. I became a widow 5 years ago. When I had got married, I got 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, and 9 grandchildren, boys only, 2 great-granddaughters. They're all the love of my life, and as one, I take them as all one. Love is more important in your life than anything. If you mean it with your heart, it gives you strength to carry on. Don't mess around with love, and don't pretend you love. love with your heart, mean it with your heart. I stand here today in front of you because I'm not going to be ashamed or shy of you. I was a politician for 25 years. My kids grew up with a politician. So first thing I always tell them is respect and attitude. But don't put me in your shoes to say my mom is a mayor. Never talk about that. So my children never did say anything. I enjoyed this conference, this big gathering. Let's all meet places together and help one another. When I lost my husband, I thought it was the end of the world. There was a lady not too long ago, last summer. She said, she's not from our community. She said to me, Margaret, you know you're one of the luckiest women in this world? And I said, why? Your husband treated you like a queen. And I said, really? Yes. He treated you with love, and he did everything with you. And I said, thank you. So, I may have lots to say, but I can't take time from other people. I know that the time length is short, but thank you so much for listening to me, and I hope some of you would take it into consideration, but don't ever leave the young people when they're crying to you, when they want to talk with you. Talk to them. They need you. They need us. They're going to be our future leaders. God knows, maybe one of them will be a prime minister. So let's give them strength and support to continue their journey and to be in their communities, to help these young people that are struggling, that are dying on the streets with OD and everything, with all these drugs that's coming into our community. Yes, it has reached my community. I came from northern Saskatchewan, 6 hours away from Saskatoon, whoever knows where Saskatoon is. So that's where I come from, a little community reserve called Pachinak. I'm First Nation. I gained my status, but I don't consider myself a First Nation. All my life, I've lived on the province, and I own my house, which I'm proud of. So, with that, pray for me, and thank you to each and every one of you, and people that organize. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of time. People that are still standing for all of us here, pray for them so they give strength to the young people that will continue their job and make as a one globe. Let's be together as one globe. That's called unity, united. That's the only way we'll be recognized as a body. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for listening to me. Thank you.
Nyawe, Margaret. PETA is actually one of the speakers in the teaching tents this afternoon, and so he has so much to share that he wants to offer through the afternoon in his teaching ceremonies. So he's going to take his the remarks that he was sharing here into the afternoon. For the next half hour, and I apologize, I have to say the clock is its own pressure, but that is our focus now is to reinvite your dialogue. And there were two speakers who we promised to hear from this morning, and I would invite those speakers to come back to the microphone to share their words from this morning. The young lady here at the front, and then the gentleman at the back, but the young lady at the front. Please go ahead.
Wache. My name is Vanessa Genier. My spirit name is Summer Sky Woman, and I'm from the community of Missinabee Cree. And I strongly believe that we're all given gifts, and we need to use those to better our community or the world, at least our corner of the world. And one of my gifts is I'm a quilter. I've been quilting for over 30 years. And last June of 2021, I felt the Creator tell me to use my gifts and in honor to honor and support survivors. So in June of 2021, I founded a project called Quilts for Survivors, and my goal was to make 18 quilts and present them to First Nation communities across Canada. That goal was quickly met in about 2 weeks, and I formed a nonprofit in October of 2021 called Quilts for Survivors, and since then, with the help of volunteers across the world, we have sent almost 3,000 quilts to survivors on Turtle Island. The quilts are presented to survivors, so there's no cost to them. These are handmade quilts, very much steeped in the tradition of giving of blankets that's in many of our cultures. Survivors can go on our website, which is www.quiltsforsurvivors.ca, and you can go there and request a quilt for yourself or in honor of a loved one. And it does take about 10 months to receive your quilt, but all requests are honored. I have a humongous team of volunteers, hundreds of volunteers from Turtle Island, from as far away as Australia, New Zealand, and even into Europe. A lot of Canadians, non-Indigenous Canadians, have heard the same stories, very media related, mind you, but we also take time for survivors to share their stories over our social media. And they have shared with me that they hurt along with us. They feel guilt because it was their ancestors that hurt our ancestors. It was their government, just like it was ours, that hurt us. It was their churches. And they were looking for some way to give back. They've heard of truth and reconciliation. But to the average Canadian, they don't know what to do with that. They don't know how to help us. They don't know how to come to us and say, I feel your pain, I'm sorry this happened to you. So when they heard of Quilts for Survivors, they felt it was a tangible way to get involved with truth and reconciliation. They felt it was something that they could do. We have lots of quilters, like I mentioned, but we also have supporters, corporate and just local businesses. I reside in Timmins, Ontario, and we have people who just send us thread or fabric or batting or monetary donations to help with the shipping. And our requests are open to everyone. You just go on our website, like I had said. I do have a booth out here as well, so thank you for allowing me to share that. And we honor residential schools, 60 Scoop, day school survivors, anyone who's been through the foster care system, and anyone who's suffered any other forms of trauma. We honor First Nations, Inuit, and Métis survivors. And if you need any more information, please just come and see me. Chimigwich.
Thank you. Quiltsforsurvivors.ca. The gentleman at the back with the red shirt.
Is that me? Hi. My name is Bob Sutherland. I'm from Moose Factory, Ontario. I went to school at Horden Hall, and then I went to the Mush Hole, and then I went to Shinwalk. I just wanted to, this morning we were talking about the burial sites, and also, first thing I guess I want to talk about is the land is related to me. The land is related to me, and I am related to the land. I put my mom and dad in that land, in the earth, and they're sacred. The land is sacred. And the reason I wanted to talk today is I was traveling around the country with Justice Sinclair. And when I was picking up the book that was being passed around for us to read about the burial sites, and I think a gentleman from Sesibi already talked about it, but I just wanted to talk about something very sensitive, and I kind of was really not thinking that it would be a good thing to talk about, but I asked a few people and they said, well, you should talk about it because it happened. When we went around the country collecting stories, there was this one individual, her mom said, I want to talk to you young kids or children. He says, I witness, how young people are. You're not supposed to go down in the basement or places like that, eh? That was a place where they would have the furnace. And then she was looking through the window, looking like this, right? And she saw two people opening a furnace door and throwing a child about this 6, 7 years old. These are realities that happen in residential school. These are realities. That's why I was reluctant to share that, because it's very hard for us to accept those type of things, that those kind of activities happen in those schools. If we're going to talk about truth, we have to talk about those. Unfortunately, that's the way it has to be. And that's why I consulted a few people here, should I talk about it? Should I bring that up? And they said, do that, because that's the truth that has to come out. And I apologize to some people that maybe have a hard time accepting those kind of truths that come out from our people. And that's all I wanted to share, because when I looked at the report that was passed around, I was trying to catch up on, what's her name again, that I always have a hard time remembering her. Murray? What was her first name again?
Kimberly Murray?
Kimberly Murray. I should know. She was working for the Survivor Secretariat of the Mohawk Institute, right? And I haven't been able to go to those meetings, but when I was reading that report, I said, well, those things are missing, what happened in those schools, and those burial, that child probably never had an opportunity to be buried, and those are the things we have to talk about. They're painful, but those are truths as well. And I thank you, and I apologize if, I kind of had to talk about that. And I thank you for listening.
Thank you, sir. I see the gentleman at the back. Yes, please go ahead.
Miigwech. I'm from the Laxo First Nation, northern Ontario. We have our own, started our own initiative about a year ago. And it's been a step-by-step process. Protocols. It's been survivor-driven. All survivors at our community works at 33 First Nations, Northern Ontario. The school that we are working on is called Pelican Lake Residence School. And the experience that people had is very traumatic. Speaking to you today, for me, is therapeutic. I've been involved with this for a long, long time. I did my research when I went to university, particularly on this topic, missing kids, how they were treated. I'm a sole survivor in my family. I don't have no brother or sister. But I'll tell you what, I came here to speak on behalf of my grandmother. 6 weeks ago, we went through an interview process of all the northern communities, the people that lost loved ones at that Pelican Lake Residence School. So we went step by step every day. People would climb in, being interviewed with a lot of support. Well, it came my time when I was interviewed. My grandmother lost six daughters at the Pelican Lake Residence School. 6 daughters, and that's my aunts. That's my aunts. So when the chief asked me to participate in this event, he said, just share it with the community, the people here, survivors, so that you create awareness that you're able to talk or you lost her. So that's why I want to share that today. And I traveled here, thinking all the way that I'm going to represent my grandmother that never had a chance to talk about this. My mother, that's my mother's sisters. So I'm here to represent my mom and my grandmother. I've been through a lot of healing process, a lot of trauma. I went through a lot of trauma in that school. So when I was interviewed for that about my last 6 aunts, I got interviewed by 3 people. And they asked me, how do you feel now? Well, I told them, that I went through a lot of trauma already at the school. So this is another one that I had to accept that, I had to accept that there's a loss there. There's a lady here, the second speaker, Métis lady, that they were never recognized. And we still are not recognized yet. And they don't recognize what we lost. It's very hard to educate the general public, here Canadians. And they don't understand this residence school. I hate to call them residence schools. And the way we were treated, I don't think, I wouldn't call that schools. So a lot of traumatic in our community. And a lot of those people, I'll share with you. Most of us kids that were in that school, we had to bury dead kids. We had to bury dead kids. We had to bury them. A lot of us never functioned mentally correctly. We had to go through a lot of healing to challenge or to heal from that burying kids. So it's not an easy process to recover. But somebody mentioned here that land is important. I had to go fasting 4 days in order to recover until the Great Spirit, listen, I'm going through a lot of trauma. I can't handle it. Maybe you can help me. That's the process I had to go through. The land. Fasting is about land. All these traditional medicines. Sage, there's a sage room over here, which really gives me relief. A safe place to sit and meditate the things that I want to share with people. So we're in the last stage of our funding is the ends at the end of March. And, but it's been extended. We asked for extension. So it's been extended. So I think the most traumatic area will be when we start the ground search. In 2012, we used an elder to find 2 missing boys, but 2 kilometers away from that school site. He drew a map. This elder drew a map. He said, you'll find one here, and you'll find another one here. Exactly where we searched. So with the remains that we had, the people took them home. Did the burial, sacred burial. But you know what the interference with this process? We found police, OPP, trying to interfere with this search process. So we kept searching, and we found a lot of small little plots, burials. We kept digging, put them in a cardboard box. And we sent them down to a corner over here, a cheap corner here over here in Toronto. He told us those were animal bones. Now, we don't bury animals when we hunt. We don't bury animals. We put them in a proper place beside a tree when you kill moose. All these animals, or fish. We do a sacred ceremony. We dance. We sing a song. And the elder that helped us find these 2 remains of boys told us those are human remains. This is what I'm saying. The government doesn't recognize this, a great wrong that he did, that created among people. He's never admitted, the government. First, I spent 10 years in the residential school. The first 5 years was a Roman Catholic school called the Macintosh. I never went home the first 5 years. I almost forgot my parents. I almost forgot I had parents. So my dad transferred me to the Pelican Lake, which I spent another 5 years. That wasn't any better. So that's why I came here, is to share with people. Also to work with people on our initiative. So we're going through a lot. We do the ground search, and I don't know. It's going to take tremendous lot of courage and strength to begin this search. I just thought I'd come here and be part of this event. I want to acknowledge all from day when the sunrise ceremony, the traditional songs, stories that I hear, and the people that are here from all directions. I want to acknowledge that. And I used to work here. I worked here in the 80s. I worked for the Ombudsman of Ontario. So that was the last time I was here in the 80s. So everything's changed. So, but anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you.
Thank you for sharing. I want to acknowledge the gentleman here at the front, and I see you're on crutches. Are you okay to stand, or do you need to sit? Are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll go to your microphone, and we'll have time for the one speaker at the back, and then we'll need to go forward.
Thank you. My name is Mike Beaver. I come from Treaty 8 territory, north of Edmonton. And there are a few of us come from there. Wabasca is the name of the community. Wabasca sigatiu daskinan deawanan. Gutinis tangik auksun 1949 is ko 1958 gi abihogam gigwanma St. Martin Residential School sigatiu. Nanas ko muna ang kapitaks niya istanani pinto na makmatsuin. Ipi kikiya kakwe istanan. We come from a community north of northern Alberta, and I went to school there in 1949 to 1958 at the St. Martin Residential School, a Catholic organization, and there's 3 elders that come from there, and we have a group of maybe 10 people, including a researcher and others that work in the to do with unmarked burials, and we have done that, and because of the soil and the high water table, we were not able to be sure that it was a yes and a no. And we didn't want to say yes and no. But the stories of the elders cannot be forgotten of that area also. And I grew up, I was there, for some time. And I grew up with all of those things bottled up inside me. I became violent. I was a very violent person. I abused my wife, and I seek forgiveness for that. And she did, I think. But that is why I come to these meetings to meet people and to smudge people, other people. I thought I could speak. It's hard to speak, to remember what to say. There is so much to talk about. There was 2 residential schools in Wabasca, one Anglican, and my friend Elder Bert is here, who attended the Anglican school. And there were 11 residential schools in Treaty 8, and 25 in Alberta altogether. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I want to recognize the gentleman at the mic at the back, and you will send us off for the afternoon, sir. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I'll be done at 5 o'clock. No, very quickly, it's important that I share this because that's what we're talking about. My name is William Osborne. I come from Mantua Park. Some people call it Manitoba. And I come from a community known as Cross Lake. But I come from Pimichikamak. It's a very massive territory. And my father passed on when he was 86. And my grandmother passed on when she was 96. I'm 64. I did a research on the history of Western education in Cross Lake. I wanted to find out where all this bullying is coming from that's happening in the school, because I work for the school and I mediate what goes on in the school. So in order to find out, I had to deeper. In the process of doing that, working with my archivist friends that I've known for maybe 30 years, in the process of that, my brother Jackson was told by my father to find her 3 sisters that never came home. And then my granny had told my cousin sister to find her 3 daughters that never came home. Now, my father never talked about this. My granny never talked about it, to me anyway. So I know nothing about it. Until when I did that research, I started looking into archives. So my friends started telling me stories about residential schools. One we had in Cross Lake, St. Joseph School, industrial schools, boarding schools, Annex Jack River in Norway House, that kind of stuff. And then that thought came to me back in 2012. We had a reunion, and my brother kept saying to me, I was the MC that time, hey, I found one, he kept saying. I said, found, well, okay. I didn't know what he was talking about. But I guess he was looking for pictures of our 3 aunties. So anyways, so I thought I'd ask my archivist friend to see if she happens to have any pictures of my 3 aunties. I knew who they were, Isabel, Betsy, and Nora. Said, let me check. So she started sending me a bit of information about my 3 aunties. So one day she said, William, I'm going to give you a heads up. I'm going to send you a little blurb that you might want to be careful about. But on that day, I had 3 grandchildren playing in my living room, enjoying their freedom, so to speak. So that little blurb comes, this was a couple days after, preparing myself. And that little blurb said, Nora, at age 5 or 7, taken to Selkirk Mental Institution due to mental health issues. I'm looking at my 3 grandchildren, and I'm thinking about my auntie. I never knew. A million thoughts started racing up. I wonder how they felt. Did they cry? I wonder what she was thinking. How did they get her from Cross Lake to Selkirk? How did they do it? So I'm looking at these. I had to take a break, went outside, did a few breathing exercises, sort of bring myself down. So I said, now that's why she told me I'm giving you a heads up. It was just a little blurb. So we started, set aside the research, started focusing on my 3 aunties. Lo and behold, to cut the story short, I found them. 2 were buried in Selkirk, St. Andrews area, and one was buried in Nepal. So cut the story short, I told my family to go to St. Andrews, go check it out, and they did a little ceremony. Some of them were marked, some were not. So they stopped over in Nepal. That one was not marked, but we said that could be her. So I said, bring each graveside dirt for each of our aunties. Now, I was getting upset because I don't know about this, but I said they should have brought them home. Why didn't they? It was too easy for them to take them away. Why didn't they bring them home? And I'm saying, I wonder how my father felt. I wonder how my granny felt. Because they never said nothing about it. But I knew my father because I was the one that went with him hunting, fishing, and trapping. He never showed signs of any grief. Anyways, so we left those dirts in a bag. We said, we're going to do something. Cut the story short, September 30th comes around. So we said, we're going to have a ceremony. We're going to have a wake in kind. So we did at my brother's house, set it up like a wake. We had 3 little boxes. Each box carried the dirt of my aunties. And we decorated that living room. So we had a wake in kind there. We were sitting around and laughing, talking about it. And we couldn't talk about our aunties because we didn't know anything about them. And my dad is not there, my granny's no longer here. So, in a couple days later, September 30th, it's a special day. It says we're going to have a service, and we're going to go to the graveyard and lay our aunties to rest. To put, quote-unquote, closure in kind. The concept of closure, will it ever happen? Does it exist? It's a question that's open to me, probably to you as well. So we had a service, beautiful service. So I had my 3 oldest sisters carry 1 little box each. We walked to the United Church graveyard, and it took a couple of days for my brother to find our granny's graveyard. So we kind of made one hole, but not too deep, so we can put those 3 little coffins in kind right there, right beside our granny. So we did that, and we took 3 crosses, and we colored them in orange. So I had my brothers, my cousins covered up the caskets with the clay with their hands, no shovel, just with their hands. And we laid the crosses there, and we put other stuff there. And CBC actually came that day. I want to thank CBC for being there for us. APTN didn't come, but that's okay. As long as we had it on the news. So we did all that. To cut the story short, I did a write-up. It's on the university website. If you read about it, it's entitled 3 Sisters. So my point is, what the minister said yesterday, he talked about mandate, timeline, and June, and $10 million something. And he talked about UNDRIP. It's not their place to implement UNDRIP. That's our responsibility, not them. My concern is this. If it took my family 70 years after to find our 3 aunties that we did not know about, how long is it going to take for us to determine if those are our aunties under the ground? What is the sacred law? What is the law? What law are we going to live up to in terms of quote-unquote repatriation? My common law said, William, look at it this. I was getting upset. He said, William, think of it this way. They are buried on the same land, one earth. Think about it that way. And then a lawyer friend of mine said to me, William, yes, you can bring your aunties home. It will take a lot of work, but it can be done. It's going to cost a lot of money. And then she said, but you know what? If you look at it this way, William, if you can, I know you really well, William. I know what you can do. But if you can't, William, the work that you did, the research that you did, you will have brought a lot of knowledge home that not many people know about their own ancestors. So think it through, William. I know it doesn't sound too good. But my father said, my granny said, find them where they were buried. But as an individual, when you were not the one given the responsibility to look for them, and to by chance, by the grace of God, to find them, it's like standing in a ball field and you're going to walk away like that. I couldn't walk away like that. I'm still standing there and I'm thinking, if somebody agrees to repatriate my three aunties, what is the sacred law in redigging the bodies and moving them? I need to explore that a little bit more. You need to do the same thing. Or am I going to allow a foreign company or entity to come and do the work on our behalf and other people's behalf? I don't think so. That happened to us at one time on the very first day. Look what they did to us. And for somebody else to come and determine, specifically scientific experts or forensic scientists, to come and determine my aunties, if they are my aunties, underneath in the Paw and Selkirk. Am I going to allow that? I'm thinking, that's what they did to the dinosaurs and all these fossils. They investigate and they study them to death. I mean, where's the respect? What's the sacred law about this whole process that we're in? And in the end, I said to Kim in our meetings, I said, you know what? I shouldn't be doing this, but I am. I didn't have to know this, but I do. I shouldn't be here, but I am. So that's why I took on the role of the Survivors Advisory Council on behalf of my three sisters and everybody else, because I wanted to explore a little bit more. So there's a big question mark. Well, I acknowledge all of you. All of you. I acknowledge our women and our grandmothers that are here. I acknowledge the young people and our men and all the workers. This will not be determined by a mandate or a timeline or the amount of money. Water is life, and water is sacred, and life is sacred. This is our process. It should be our process. If it took 70 years for us to bring our aunties home, let the years come until the day that we are satisfied to find what we're looking for that's rightfully ours. Oh, there goes it.
Oh. Nyawe, sir, for your words. I know that there's a speaker, but we have to close. This brings our plenary back to a conclusion, because we need to go forward with our dialogue that involves the teachings. And there are knowledge keepers and those of profound wisdom whom are going to share with us through breakout and teaching the next part of our journey together. I want to just outline for you, before we do that, let me first acknowledge our panel and want to thank them. And please join me in thanking Sarah, Michelle, Pakuk, and Margaret.